Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar in our series. Today, we are going to be talking about the Career Development Office on campus. Just to start, I'll introduce myself. I'll introduce my colleague. Actually, my colleague will introduce himself, and then we will go to our special guests. My name is Melissa Hippolyte. I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships at CollegeBound Foundation, and I'll be your moderator for today. Cameron?
And my name is Cameron Fear. I'm a college completion advisor with CollegeBound. I work with Towson, UMES, and Salisbury students. And I will be monitoring the chat today, fielding any questions that you may have.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cameron. Before we get into our guests and they introduce themselves, I am a proud Morgan State alum and would like to take a moment just to send some light and love to the Morgan State community as they deal with this horrible, tragic event that took place yesterday. With that said, our other guest, Mr. Craig Bullock, isn't able to join us, but again, we're sending light and love their way to the Morgan community, to the students, to their families, and everyone impacted by this terrible, terrible event. Thank you. So we are going to now introduce our guests. First, I'll ask Lori to introduce herself.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Lori Logan Bennett, and I serve as Assistant Vice President of Career Services at Towson University. So I've been here about 12 years, but have been doing Career Center work and student support work for about 25.
Thank you, Lori. Mel?
Good afternoon. My name is Mel Brennan. I am the Executive Director of the Center for Experience and Opportunity, or the CEO office at McDaniel College. I came to this role in January of this year after a lifetime of nonprofit leadership, for-profit leadership, global sport governance leadership, and municipal work with the most vulnerable. And I'm happy to be here, happy to dialogue with students.
Thank you both for joining us. We have students joining us from both high school and maybe some high schoolers, and we have colleges because, as you know, CollegeBound Foundation, we work with many colleges and we support students to and through college. We have students, advisors in the high schools and advisors that support our students while they go through college. With that being said, we can kind of get into it because I know the students have questions. If anyone watching has questions, please use the Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen to ask those questions. And Cameron will either read the question out loud or he'll send you a response in the chat. So just to start off, Lori and Mel, where did you guys go to college?
Okay, I'll go first. So I'm from Ohio originally. So for my undergraduate education, I went to Ohio University, which is a school that's now about 20,000 students in rural Ohio, southeastern Ohio. And then for graduate school, I went to The Ohio State University.
The Ohio State. Did you know you'd have the job that you have now back then? Is that what you intended on doing?
No, not at all. I was a sociology major and majored in that just because I loved it and found it really interesting with no real thought as to what I was going to do with that, how I was going to be applying that post-graduation. But as I went through my course of study, I really loved the work that my professors were doing and was really inspired to go down that path. So I went straight from undergrad into graduate school with the intention of pursuing my PhD in sociology. But when I arrived at Ohio State, I was lucky enough to get a graduate assistantship, which was able to pay for my graduate education plus a stipend. And that graduate assistantship was in the Career Center at Ohio State. And so during the course of that experience, I learned about something that I didn't even know really existed in terms of a career in student affairs and higher education that was in a kind of service student support capacity. And so once I decided just to stop at my master's degree and to pursue something that was along the lines of what I've been doing while in grad school. So it was to some extent luck and serendipity, but I think to some extent as well, just sort of openness to exploring and openness to what came by my way, and some reflection around what I enjoyed and where I felt I had some talent. So yes, I didn't even know this was a job when I was when I started college. So
Same. Who knew? How about you, Mel?
So I went to the Air Force Academy out of high school. I took my oath and stood a post at the age of 17, like a week after I graduated high school. And played Division I ball out there, was astronautical engineering and satellite design, and got hurt playing ball and realized that they had taken away my ability to be in the cockpit. And I didn't really want to do that if I couldn't be in the cockpit. So I transferred to Drexel University with a focus on engineering. And Drexel's a co-op school. We'll talk a little bit later about, getting involved in some of this experiential learning. And the great thing about that was I realized I didn't want to be an engineer at all. After interning and co-oping with an engineering firm. So then I fell back on my small school choice, which was the school I work at now, McDaniel College. At that time, it was Western Maryland College. And so I'm a 96 graduate there with degrees in history and political science and minors in economics and French. I pursued a PhD, still not done, but pursued a PhD, took my whole family over to Scotland to the University of Stirling, which sits between Glasgow and Edinburgh. And my focus there was on sport and human rights. So I focused in on how human rights is impacted by Olympic Games and Olympic cities. And it was an extension of this work of, when we do a thing in society or when we do a thing in a community, who is made or kept vulnerable by that? And a whole career in nonprofit work was around that idea of keeping track of the humanity of the most vulnerable. Most recently, I came to this role from being the CEO of the United Way of Southern Maryland. And, the idea in taking this opportunity was, we were really looking for someone who was going to do a few things. One was going to bring those rich relationships from the for-profit, nonprofit, municipal, and world. And I have a broad career that connects in all those areas, but also a focus on service design thinking, right? So we wanted to develop a design thinking shop, which really spent a lot of time focus grouping students and understanding where they were, which I think is more important than ever in the post-COVID environment, right? We're seeing across all of our stakeholders, whether it's faculty, staff, students, still a bit of post-COVID lethargy, right? And the question is like, how do we go not back to normal, but forward to a new normal? And what does that look like? And a lot of that will come from not only asking students questions, but asking the right questions, stimulating the right conversations. And so being certified in that with IDEO and Stanford, I brought that to the table as well. And I'm excited to do that work with students every day.
Awesome. Thank you. Speaking of asking questions, when I graduated from college, it was a couple years ago, right? So we didn't have Handshake. Lori, can you tell us what Handshake is? Because I'm learning about it and I'm sure the students need to know because it's everywhere.
Yeah, sure. So Handshake is a career management system, which basically means it's a platform that allows students, or in some instances, depending on your institution, alumni, engage with opportunities. And so our instance of Handshake here at Towson, we are utilizing it for posting on-campus jobs, part-time off-campus jobs, internship opportunities, full-time jobs for those students who are nearing graduation. So it's really the platform that students can go to if they're looking to connect with employers. Last year we had 108,000 postings, I think, with about 70,000 student applications. So it's very well utilized, I think, because it's so valuable in terms of the number of opportunities. There are employers posting from around the world, but also they have the opportunity, those employers, to indicate which institutions they want to post to. And so we also get a lot of local employers, so a really nice mix. We also use Handshake as the tool for students to schedule one-on-one coaching appointments with our staff. So they can, they're going to be assigned, the way we work it is they're assigned the direct connection with their career coach, the one that's appropriate for their industry. So they don't have to really know who they're supposed to meet with. They'll automatically be matched with that person. We also use Handshake to manage our events. So that might be one of our many job fairs. It might be an employer information session. It could be a networking event, some sort of career education event. So there are lots of opportunities for students to connect with TU focused events, but also other entities, employers, et cetera, who are perhaps hosting virtual events that students can tap into. So a really nice place to go for action is kind of how we describe it. Our website is a great place to go for content and information, building your resume, you know, how to prep for an interview. And Handshake is often the place that we're directing students when they want to do something. They want to look for and or apply for a job. They want to make an appointment. They want to RSVP for an event.
Awesome. So if I'm a student and I know that I need to work because there are certain things that I need to have, right? I can get, because I know some students who work maybe at the grocery store or maybe at a gym or maybe somewhere else. I can actually use Handshake to find a job right now to get paid.
Yes.
And can I use it to, you know how you can filter? Can I use it to filter jobs that maybe would be jobs within my major?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there are a variety of really great filters that students can utilize, including filters for remote opportunities, if that's something they're interested in, but also by college, by major, by industry, job function, you're in school. So there, you know, just depending upon what criteria a student's interested in sort of sorting through all those 100,000 plus job announcements, there is that opportunity. Plus the system does a really good job of remembering the kinds of positions students have looked for in the past, as well as the information included in the student's profile to surface opportunities for that student. So they don't even have to, in many instances, you know, worry about filtering in criteria. A lot of great opportunities are just presented to them off the bat. The other thing I'll just mention real quick, if it's okay, is there's another platform, Parker Dewey. Mel, I don't know if you all are using that at McDaniel. So Parker Dewey is a platform that students anywhere could log into. Your school doesn't necessarily have to be affiliated, and you would have the opportunity to search for, they call them micro internships. And the micro internships are short-term experiences. They're all paid, and the vast majority are remote or virtual. So maybe you are working a part-time job, but you also want to get some career-related experience, but you just don't have enough hours in the day to commit to a full, you know, 20-hour-a-week internship. A micro internship might be an opportunity to explore. So that's a nice platform that students everywhere could tap into if they want to expand the variety, the type of opportunities presented to them.
Oh, that's
before
awesome.
before we go, I'm just gonna say, before we go too far beyond Handshake, I want to just extend Lori's conversation. There's nothing that she said that I disagree with. In fact, I agree wholeheartedly with everything she says almost every time, right? So, but certainly with regard to Handshake. But in addition, so McDaniel functions very similarly to Towson in its use of Handshake. But what's important for students to hear is that, you know, with a tool like this in place, it's important for them to go beyond what they can do on the platform and start thinking about the platform in terms of musts and shoulds, right? It's the idea here is that the platform exists, but students have to develop a facility across the platform, which means you've got to dive in and spend some time, right? It's super important, for example, for students to maximize their profile on the platform to 100%. Right? So just logging on and creating a profile and having the profile at 0% or 15% doesn't really maximize the power of the platform on behalf of students, right? This is a tool, if you're going to an institution that has Handshake, you pay for it, right? And so the idea from a student perspective is get on the platform, spend 30 minutes, spend 45 minutes, really developing your profile and really developing the skills to move across the platform in ways that maximize the opportunities that are available to you through the platform. You know, we have about 45,000 jobs that apply to McDaniel students. We have about 15,000 applications. I mean, the platform has opportunities in the thousands and tens of thousands for students. But if they hear, oh, this is just another app that the school wants me to download, and don't really give it the prioritization that they should, well, every moment that your profile isn't thick and juicy and abiding on the platform is a moment where you're not connecting with the opportunities that are available to you. So I really want to just make sure that students hear that, you know, that Handshake is something that they're going to want to really dive into, right? Really develop their profile and really spend time, to your point earlier, Melissa, creating the filters, right? Very often we'll recommend, for example, that students search unfiltered, right? Because they don't know what they don't know yet, right? But after they do that, there's nothing wrong, to your point, about beginning to apply the filters that really customize the types of searches that they want to do. And in partnership with the career office at Towson, McDaniel, or anywhere that is effectively using Handshake, they can really get out of it what they need in order to move forward with the next steps in their careers. So I just wanted to emphasize, like, hey, don't take this platform for granted. Like, own your side of it in diving in, developing your profile, and really engaging with it, because it has a lot, it gives a lot back to what you give to it. So.
If I can just jump in to say, absolutely, no, that's fantastic advice. And we have found from our experience that students, as you know, we're all busy and we're all on a million different platforms, so it is hard to keep track and to remember what's happening where, but this is a really key resource for you to be able to tap into. For instance, there is a function that allows employers to message students directly based on their profile, which hopefully it's thick and juicy, as Mel was mentioning. But we don't have a lot of students even realizing that employers are messaging them through the system because they're not fully engaged with the entirety of the product. So a lot of missed opportunities there. So yes, I just wanted to thank you, Mel, for putting in that plug for full utilization.
That's awesome. Speaking of that, let's talk about internships, because I'm sure they can get internships through Handshake as well. Mel, can you talk a bit about internships and why those are important to students? Or I know we already spoke about the how. How do you get these internships? It's right there in Handshake and right there in your offices, right? So let's talk a bit about why these students should intern. I know Lori mentioned it a little bit because that's what you're doing now and the different opportunities that you had. But can you talk about internships, please?
Yeah, I mean, internships in one sentence is applying what you've learned in the classroom to the world of work, right? Mm-hmm. That's what an internship is. More broadly, it's a professional learning experience, right? It offers meaningful, practical work related to your field of study, right? So if you are, or your career interest, right? So if you're working, as I did, I was, pursuing a degree in engineering, an internship that actually got me in front of a draft table at Amtrak, among other engineers, doing a bit of engineering work, was really instructive in terms of a learning experience that allowed me to understand, hey, this is something I'm going to want to do or not want to do, right? As the case may be. It's also important to recognize that you should come out of an internship more skilled at the end of the internship than you were when you went in, right? So an internship is an experience that is building skills, right? Sometimes those skills are soft skills. Sometimes those skills are hidden skills, but sometimes those skills are very straightforward. Right. Mm-hmm. I understand now, as a political science major, having had this internship in Annapolis, how to approach the offices of delegates and senators and get on their schedule. That is a new skill I might have as a result of an internship that I did not have before. Right. So students should be on the lookout for those types of outcomes, right, as part of an internship experience. It is, like I said before, it's just as valuable to find out, hey, I'm not sure I really want to do this, as it is, yes, I'm on the right track. This is exactly what I want to do. And it does, in that sense, allow for some career exploration, right? And so different schools do this different ways. We tend to create the environment that allows students to pursue internships with fervor across the Handshake platform on the one hand, and on the other hand, we have departments that will hold abiding internship opportunities that really apply to the departmental needs in certain areas. So psychology, our psychology department, for example, may hold some clinical placements, right? That are the result of the relationships they have with certain institutions. And those are annual, perennial opportunities that are held within the department. But either partnering in the department with the department internship leadership faculty and or the career services department, we end up with a broad list of opportunities for students to pursue.
I've been meeting some students lately. We've been on college campuses, like Cameron said, him and the team, they've been to different campuses meeting with students. I had the opportunity to shadow a couple of meetings, and I'm hearing from the students, I need an internship, right? What's the first step for them to get that internship? Yes, open the app, but what if they like open the app and they don't know what to do? What's the first thing that they should do? So on Tuesday, I think, oh my gosh, I want to find an internship. Then what?
The first step they need to do is to get on the app, right? And or walk themselves down to the career services office, right? The easiest way, we're just like Lori and Towson in that you schedule time with the CEO office through the Handshake app, right? So when you go on and you say, I need an appointment, right? You will be funneled to a director in career development, an associate director in career development, or what's called a CEO ambassador, who will then take that appointment and field your need, right? So you'll come in and you'll say, I need an internship, and we'll say, okay, let's talk about what that means. And out of that initial meeting will come the next steps that everybody involved in the stakeholding will take, right? So whether it is the staff member illuminating the opportunities and helping with the filtering, coordinating conversations at the department level, or it's the student then really doing the filtering on the app, drilling down, coming back and saying, these are the types of opportunities I'm interested in. I'm seeing a lot of these other ones that I'm not really interested in. And it becomes a narrowing and a pursuit opportunity at that point. And then we coordinate across the registrar's office for registering the internship appropriately and making sure that it does what it says on the can, right? This idea that, the things that we expect the internship to be doing in terms of protecting students, giving them the professional learning experience, having the outcomes, all of that is coordinated effectively and registered appropriately with the registrar's office so that this shows up on students' transcripts as well.
So when should I start looking? Should I start during my freshman year, sophomore? When should I start doing internships?
Well, Lori's been in career services a lot longer than me, even though she's only 22. She's been in there for 26 years. So what I will tell you is that what we tell students is that as soon as, even before they get here, we have a program called McDaniel Local, which brings students out for 2 days before they even start orientation in their first year in the summer. And we're telling them then, download the Handshake app. We're telling them then that this is the beginning of designing your 4 years, and that thinking about these things and letting them percolate and activating conversations in class with your professors that you like, in the departments that you're interested in. It all begins as early as that. And so it's the answer, the flip side of that is it's never too late, right? So the idea is, because we work with students who are young alumni who have just graduated, they're still like, I need to gain access to these areas, or I need an externship, which is like what you did, Melissa, which is shadowing, right? Maybe shadowing a CEO. All that stuff along the lines of the continuum of service and experiential learning. But in terms of internships, it's never too early and never too late to come have the conversation with the team so that we can support next steps.
Okay.
Now, Lori, how would you speak to that?
In terms of timing? Yeah, so same thing. We say the more the better, the earlier the better. But there are going to be throughout your life opportunities to learn and experience new things. So whether it is an official internship or an informational interview, kind of career conversation with someone to do more exploration and learning and to gain that exposure. Job starting, all of those things are experiential in nature and can be really helpful, not only for gaining experience, building your resume and all the other benefits that Mel talked about, but also for building your network. And so that is a key way to start to have your network be broadened. And you can think about your network as your champions, you know, folks that can point you in the right direction or provide just that one piece of advice that can get you where you want to go. So I think that also goes back to the question about how to look for an internship. So absolutely using your campus resources and Handshake and your career centers, but also your network. So your neighbor at home may not be an engineer, but he or she may have an idea of somebody who is that they would like to connect you with. So really just thinking about everybody as a possible addition to your network, and cultivating that, and again, a way to build that being through the internship process too. So sooner and more is always great on that front.
So Lori, speaking of neighbors, right? Neighbors and networks, I can think of, I've been around CollegeBound for a couple of years, maybe 11, but who's counting? So speaking of that, I have a couple students who already graduated from Towson. Are they able to come back and get any services to help them get their career started or maybe a career change?
So yes. So the vast majority of Towson's career services are available to alums indefinitely. So their ability to use Handshake, to attend a job fair, to use our online resources. And then for more kind of personalized service, so one-on-one coaching basically, that's available to alums within the first 2 years post-graduation. So there's sort of that 2-year grace period where they can still tap into that that one-on-one assistance. But during that period and after, students still have ongoing, or I should say alums still have ongoing access to the rest of those services.
Awesome. How about a McDaniel, Mel?
Same thing. We engage what we call young alumni directly. We have young alumni who come back into the office and get to sit down, you know, and as you get older, the services remain available to you. We tend not to focus on bringing in, you know, mid-alumni or older alumni, but it has happened prior to my getting into this role. There were opportunities that we had with alumni who were much older, making, you know, mid-career transitions that just needed a couple pieces of support, right? And so we have done that on an ad hoc basis. But like Lori, the vast majority of our focus is on the undergraduate and graduate student body. But, you know, we're not going to turn away alumni who are looking for help. So.
And I think it's the same at Morgan, actually. I recently toured their career development office and I asked the question, and I think they assist alumni as well, who can, if you need help afterwards, they'll review, and you guys do the review and the resumes and the interviewing and things like that. So I remember, again, in undergrad, there were these events on campus that I found out about after. I should have been more diligent. That's why we're doing this now, right? Can you guys tell me about a couple of events that you have coming up on campus? I guess Lori, start. Would you mind?
Yeah, sure. So I would say our events fall in 2 categories. One being connection-oriented events, and the other being sort of educational, career education focused events. And so on the connection event front, we have our large job fair, our large fall job fair coming up the end of October on the 27th. And this is an opportunity for students to build connections, build their network, but also connect directly to opportunities with 220 employers. So that's the capacity of the arena. And the great thing about those kinds of events is that at least for us, our employers that are attending pay to come. So you know that they are really invested in recruiting Towson talent. They want to be here. They want to build that pipeline or, you know, directly engage with hiring then and there. So it's a great opportunity, a great breadth of employers in a large event like that as well. But we also have some employer connection events that are a little bit more focused. So last week we had a liberal arts career fair. We have an art expo coming up next week on the 10th. So there will be opportunities for students not only to kind of connect in those larger environments and contexts, but also things that are going to be a little bit more perhaps industry specific or might speak to them or resonate with them a little bit more personally. On the career I'm gonna sneeze, sorry. Ooh, at the career education front, sorry.
Bless you.
God bless you.
Thank you. We have a variety of workshops and different programs of that nature that speak to kind of career path exploration. So community-based careers, we just have one scheduled. We have some career fair prep events coming up. So not only, just needing to know when and where the career fair is happening, but how to really leverage that experience for whatever goals you might have. Resume building is a component of some of those pre-fair workshops as well, because you want to make sure you are prepared to be able to talk about yourself and your value add, both in writing and in a resume, but then also in a verbal way via the actual networking that's taking place at the fair, kind of that 30-second commercial preparation. So those are just some examples. We have lots and lots. I want to say we had about 250 events last year. So there's always something going on, and you can find them in Handshake in the events section.
So what if I don't know what I want to do? I don't know. I know I was first gen, started school. I didn't know what I want. I didn't know college access was a thing, but I love it. So I'm still here. So what if you don't know what you want to do and you're trying to figure it out? How can I still come to your office?
I'll speak for Towson, and I'm sure the same is true with McDaniel. Absolutely. And so we have a career communities model. So we have a STEM career community, a health and wellness, a liberal arts. So we have these various career communities, but we also have an exploration career community. So if you're a student who is undecided, or maybe you picked a major, but you're not quite sure why, or you're not quite sure now that you've taken a class or two that this is actually what you want to do, like Mel's experience uncovering that engineering wasn't necessarily the path that he wanted to continue along. We have this community to provide support. So directing students to great resources, connecting them to our alumni mentors to help explore what the options may be. And then we have a career coach who is really focused on helping students to delve further into themselves. So recognizing their strengths, their values, their interests, but then connecting those to opportunities that are out there. So there's someone here to help you navigate that uncertainty and share with you in that journey to get you where you're feeling confident about the decisions that you're making.
Awesome. Thanks, Lori. Mel, can you tell us a little bit about the activities on your campus?
Sure. So today, right now, students can go right after this, is our virtual job and internship and employer exploration fair that's happening today. It is, we do it every semester. So this is our fall one. And Daniel D. Hollander, who is our director of career development and the career development team, is leading that in partnership with schools from Maryland and Pennsylvania. And I just sent Cameron the Zoom link for that. If folks want to stop in and see what that looks like, he can share that out. And so we do that in the fall, we do that in the spring. In the run up to the fair, so in the previous week that led up to this fair, we ran what's called the Prepped and Ready workshops, right? And the Prepped and Ready workshops were something that was happening every day in the evening, usually, right? Late afternoon and evening, that covered some piece of what we call the competencies that we want to make sure students are possessed of before they go into these spaces, right? So we might talk about leadership, we might talk about first impressions, we might talk about professionalism. There's a body, a national body called NACE, right? And NACE lays out some competencies that we try to address in the Prepped and Ready workshops. And those workshops do a few things. One, they skill up students and get them ready for these moments, but they also are usually informed by alumni. Our Pitch Palooza, which was our first impression sessions last week, also included boards of trustees members who were running sessions. And so students have an opportunity to come out of that week with 18 to 20 brand new network connections that are also alumni, and to be skilled up to then go into the job and internship fair ready to engage and explore. So we run that in the fall and in the spring. And then across the fall and the spring, we also run things called industry showcases. So on October 19th, from 3 to 6, we're doing an industry showcase around, and it's a multidisciplinary virtual fair, one-off recruitment tables, networking, 10 local employers. And our focus here is on art, theater, and cinema. In the spring, it'll be more around the hard sciences, right? But it's a showcase where employer representatives deliver like a 3-minute pitch about their organizations. Then they move around the room, students move around the room, networking happens, and students access those individuals towards your earlier submission. Find out more about what they don't know, right? Like, I think I know what this entity does, but I just heard something in that presentation that makes me ask a different question. And now I'll go over, talk to that person and find out a lot more about what that entity does. So we have industry showcases in the fall and the spring. We have our virtual job fair today, but we run those in the fall and the spring. And we have our prepped and ready workshops that go the week ahead of the virtual job fair that get students ready, connected, and engaged.
So what if I don't have like business clothes to attend these things? Like, you both have a lot of things going on campus, but what if I don't have the business clothes to come prepared, prepped and ready? What if I don't feel like I'm prepped and ready?
So one of the things that surprised me when I arrived on campus was a experience that McDaniel College does called its Career Closet. And its Career Closet experience functions as Bergdorf Goodman's, Macy's, Jones, New York for students. Like, I wanted to shop there. So when I say shop, like just go up to a rack and take things.
That's not shopping. Don't do
No,
that.
that's not. That's something else that would normally lead to a problem. But I was blown away by the donations that came from the community, from alumni, from professors, from other community members, from businesses. And our CEO ambassador students organize those clothes. We make calls for broad, non-standard sizes, so that, I'm 6'7", right? So I would not have naturally imagined that clothes would be there for me, because when I go to the mall, nothing works for me. But there was a healthy big and tall selection. There's a plus size collection. And like I said, these things are gently used or brand new. And students can go in there and gain access to these clothes in this career closet in ways that remove the stigma from this idea that maybe I don't have the outfit or outfits that I think I need in order to function at my best in the space, right? So we encourage all kinds of students, a whole diverse slate of students, to come in and check it out. It's one of the more popular activities that the CEO office does, in part because it really is clothing and apparel of high quality, and people feel very empowered when they're dressed for success. And we want to make sure that that barrier is taken off the table when students want to gain access to these opportunities.
And it's free. Absolutely
free.
And you encourage
You
people.
can't take a whole rack of clothes, right? I think you're limited to like 3 or 4 outfits, but yes, those, because I saw people like, I'll take this whole rack. I'm like, I'm sure you would.
So you have to encourage people to come shop for fancy clothes for free.
We put the word out, and then I think it has a momentum of its own, right?
Yeah.
Particularly once folks start getting on the text and letting their friends know, no, it's quality down here, right?
How about at Towson, Lori?
Oh, we have something similar. So ours is called Suit Up, with the T and the U in the middle of that name, capitalized. So in a similar way, we have clothing that students can keep. And so these would be gently used, donated items, variety of sizes. And we tend to have a continuous stream of donations, which we're really fortunate to receive. And then we also have, we received a grant a couple of years ago. So we have purchased new suits, new professional clothing items for students. And so to make sure that there's always something available for a student when they come in, those are borrow. So both are free, but the keep items, students can find what works for them and not return. And then the others are going to be available, but are to be returned so that future students can benefit.
That's awesome. So I have the clothes, I have the help, I have everything I need to get the services to find my internship and find my job and find an on-campus job or off-campus job. Is that what you're telling me? Where were you guys when I was an undergrad? All
That's
the
what
things
we're saying.
there.
Well, I mean, you make a great point in that, like I said, I was a 96 grad of Western Maryland College, and this stuff didn't exist when I went there. When I graduated from McDaniel, I had to go to the guy that ended up being the best man in my wedding. I went to his university, Rutgers University, and used their career center through his support in order to gain access to my first job. So it is powerful to see the evolution of this because, yeah, it's very important that when students come now to campus that they get that wraparound support, right? Their role is to go and learn and do everything they need to do to maximize their knowledge, right? But they also should get these other tools that Towson, McDaniel, and other schools have to make sure that there's an ecosystem around them that really positions them for success in college and right when they graduate.
So I don't know what I don't know, and I'm wise enough to tell you when I don't know. Is there anything that maybe we didn't cover that you guys think is important to add before we end this webinar?
I would just add that my hope is that students will be open to the whole spectrum of experiential learning, right? One of the more powerful pieces, for example, I mentioned it very quickly earlier on, was externships, shadowing. I developed some major relationships by just being in the room where it happens, right? There's a guy named Steve Mariotti who ran the National Foundation for Teaching Entrepreneurship. And I just sat with him for a week in every meeting he was in. And the second meeting we had was with Jay-Z, right? And so I got to see not only how a CEO functions and like, oh, maybe I could do that one day, but I got to see these superstars in their most human. He was looking to how he could give back to community and things like that. And I realized these were just other people like me with their own hopes, fears, expectations, aspirations, right? And it made a whole level of work, like in the C-suite and with ostensible celebrities, it made that whole level of work accessible for me, right? Just by shadowing him for that week, right? So if shadowing opportunities come up in your area of work, and you're like, well, that's not quite the internship I wanted, don't necessarily be immediate to turn it down. Think through, like, sometimes just being in the room where it happens and seeing those is itself a skill up, right? So I would ask students to be open to the broad spectrum of experiential and service learning, from volunteering to externships to internships to field placements to, as Lori said, informational interviewing, right? Which is a big deal, right? I'm not necessarily asking for a job. I'm just asking to interview with you to know more, right? Can't imagine how many jobs ultimately come out of that, right? Because now it's a new network node for you, right? That you didn't have before. So to be open and engaged to the whole spectrum of learning, I would ask students to think about.
Where do we sign up for the Jay-Z meeting? Can you put that in the chat, please?
I haven't been able to get another one since. I just, you know.
Lori, anything you want to add?
So I know that it can seem daunting to think about your career and to think about it as what I'm doing now is going to affect the next 40 years of my life. And to some extent, it will have an effect, but it's not going to be what you do when you graduate from college is, I feel pretty close to guaranteeing, is not what you're going to be doing when you retire. Right. So these are all steps along the path, and to try not to be overwhelmed by, the pressure of these steps and decisions, but to know that inaction is also a decision that you're making. And so, look at the things that are most pertinent to you where you are now. Start with one, and that you'll get comfortable, interacting with folks. I will say on our campus, and I feel like it's safe to say on most, if not all campuses, everybody is there to support students. Like, they want nothing more than to see students succeed. So they want you to ask for assistance to point them in the right direction. They really get sad when students don't. And so don't feel like you're going to be a burden or you're supposed to know it all. Just to really be open to asking for help, making those connections, and to not be afraid to take some steps so that you can, make progress. And it is a one step at a time kind of journey. And just to kind of keep that perspective, hopefully makes it a little bit more manageable going forward. But I will say, use your career centers. That's we're here for you, and we do want nothing more than to see you succeed. So please.
that prompted two more questions. Thank you. So I'll ask, well, Laura, you're still, I'll start with you. So I know that at different campuses, they're usually, well, sometimes they're table setups. So you have someone at a table. If I was a student and I was walking up to this table, what should I say?
You can ask whatever questions on your mind as one starting place. And I think it's absolutely great if you approached with a, hey, I'm a sophomore thinking about changing my major. I have no idea what to do now. And, just asking and saying, I don't have an idea about what I want to ask is okay too. We actually have a My First Appointment type that students can sign up for. So if it's just like, I know I'm supposed to go to the Career Center, I don't really know, I don't know if I have questions, because as you mentioned, you don't know what you don't know often, right? So this is just a mechanism to get you connected. So on our campus, that might be one action you could take. You could ask the student. So most of the time when we're tabling, it's fellow students who are behind the table. So students that work in our office in the Career Center. So you can just ask them a little bit about, like, what do you like about the Career Center? Or what do you think is like the hidden gem of the Career Center that you didn't know about until you started working there? What if I have, one free hour next week, what should I be doing to prep for my career? So I think there are a variety of ways you can start the conversation, or just stop by and say hi, and they'll engage you.
Awesome, thank you. And Mel, for you, final question, I think, unless I think of something else that I think will be helpful. So if I met someone, be it at lunch or in the elevator, in the hallway, and I think that their job, or I hear them talking about something I think is pretty cool, what's a good way for me to engage in conversation with them?
Well, to be vulnerable and honest, right, is one of the easiest ways in which to gain access to someone else's humanity, right? So to walk up to somebody and say, hey, I'm a student at McDaniel College, and I just heard you talk about something that sounded really cool. Can I ask you a little bit more about that, right? So, starting off with, hey, I'm a student, I don't know what I don't know, but I just heard something that sounded very interesting to me, and can I ask you a little bit more about that, right? And then to practice those deep, active listening skills, right? And part of listening is knowing when to ask clarifying questions, right? And maybe that person doesn't have that time right then and there. Do you have a business card? Can I reach out to you later? Those types of things in the post-COVID environment have become a little bit more awkward than ever, because we're rebuilding some of these skills because we spent so much time on Zoom. But practice makes perfect, right? Michael Jordan didn't come out and just shoot last second 3-pointers at practice. He practiced foul shots. He practiced layups, right? And so this is the sort of practicing of the foul shot and the layup that we can do. And when we do it more often, even for personalities like myself, right, who are introverts, and sometimes those interactions take energy rather than give energy. But the benefit over the long term of developing the skill is then in more settings, you can do that more often and build out your network. There's a story that I heard, I have no idea whether it's true, and I heard it about both Michelle Obama and Bill Clinton, but that they kept Rolodexes from a very early age, right? Because you never know, right? You never know. And so I'm not advocating going back to the Rolodex. That's a big spinny thing that most students haven't heard of, right? But our phones and our contacts, right? Keeping them on the cloud and keeping them on our phone, that stuff becomes very important, because you just never know, right? And so if you hear something that sounds cool, try to extend that conversation by being vulnerable, right? But still approaching and engaging, right?
Good answer. Now, I did think of another question, or Cameron might have nudged me and said, ask this. So let's talk. People always talk about networking. Oh, you need to network. You need to network. And in my 17, 18-year-old mind, I may not have known what that is, right? how do I network? Do I just go somewhere and say, hey, I'm here to network? Or to what you said, you woke up and say, that sounds pretty cool. How do I find myself in the right spaces with the right people to do this networking thing that you guys are talking about?
So I would say, like, every conversation you have is a networking conversation. So the person sitting next to you in class, again, they may have had an internship that sounds interesting, as you're just talking with them, and then they can make a connection for you. It might be the person who does your hair has a client who is doing what you're interested in. So you don't have to think about networking as just an activity that takes place with people who are doing what you want to do. But it's just building relationships. Having conversations and building relationships is, I think, a way that I'm also an introvert. So that also sounds more manageable to me than trying to approach strangers and, do those introductions. That can be a part of networking, absolutely. But you can start with just sort of thinking about and framing your everyday interactions as opportunities to build your network. I also think alumni are fantastic to connect with because you have that built-in connection already. You're both Tigers, or what's McDaniel's mascot?
You're both Green Terrors.
You're both Green Terrors. So you're able to then approach and probably be received more readily, if you have that common starting point. So you can connect with alums so we have a mentor network database basically on our campus. Via LinkedIn is an amazing networking tool and a fantastic alumni tool. Is a great way to find alums who are working where you want to work or doing certain things that you're interested in exploring further. So alumni can be a great place to start as well, where it's a little bit of an easier access point, basically, for those kinds of conversations.
Awesome. Mel, did you want to add something?
I mean, there's not much to add to that. I think that's great. That's a great piece of feedback. The only other thing I'd say is, networking is relationship building, as Lori said, and there are some specific skills in doing that, right? Connecting with people, talking about mutual goals, mutual barriers, helping yourself and others, lower barriers, achieve goals, and rinsing and repeating that process is relationship building, but it's undergirded with a belief, right? And so it's important for students to analyze what they believe about this, right? And one of the things that helps in networking is believing, I need you, right? I need you, right? So everyone that I come across, I need them. I need them to be a great citizen in society. I need them to be part of the wider community that we're building. I need them to engage with students. I need you, right? And so if you bring that humility to the conversation, right, and recognize that we all need each other, right, then it becomes easier to explore what that person's going through, right? Imagine being on LinkedIn and seeing a post from somebody who's a McDaniel alumni and you don't know them at all as a McDaniel student, and you reach out and you go, that was cool, that thing that you're doing. If I can help in any way, let me know. Well, as a student, you may not really be able to help at all, but you just made a connection by being human in that moment, right? And being authentic in that moment. So for me, it's a relationship building, but the underlying belief of recognizing that we need each other, that we're not just there for each other. This is not this world that we're trying to build is not transactional, right? It's relational, and so we're not talking about networking as a cold, calculated process, right? We're talking about authentically engaging with folks so that we can be the solutions for each other as we go.
Awesome. Thank you. Lori and Mel, you two have been incredible, and I thank you for your time. Cameron, do we have any questions before we head out of here?
We do have one student who is asking about any opportunities for special needs kids, such as autism. So I'm not sure if that is from the perspective of someone who might be seeking out opportunities or opportunities to do that, but
Yeah, I mean, at McDaniel, and I used to teach at Towson from 2003 to 2005, and worked really hard to make sure, and Lori can extend on this, but worked really hard to make sure that differently able students felt empowered in the classroom and got the supports that they need. And I know that at Towson, and I know now at McDaniel, that we have both departments and an ethos across the institutions to support differently able, neurodivergent, and a broad array of students, right? So the SAS office at McDaniel College really leads the work in embedding that across the university, but also providing specific services for students. And they partner with us to make sure that we are positioning students effectively for opportunities in the same categories that we have for every other student, but in ways that really empower neurodivergent students and students with special needs. And so the answer is not, will I, as a student that suffers from autism or some other neurodivergency, be able to get an internship? The answer is, what kinds of internships are available to me, and how do I use the SAS office and the CEO office to gain access? Because those opportunities exist.
Thank you.
And I would say the same for Towson. So ours is called the Accessibility Disability Services Office. And so we work closely with them to ensure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students. We also have had training in our office to ensure we can talk through with students, how to approach conversations around accommodations with employers, and really how to manage some of the special circumstances that an individual may have. So there is sort of a team behind students in the Career Center and beyond the Career Center that would be here to support.
Awesome. Thank you. We have 2 minutes left. If you guys don't mind clicking, the panelists, Lori and Mel, if you guys don't mind clicking the chat button and changing the blue tab to everyone, can you please share your contact information so that anybody on the call today can reach out to your office if they had follow-up questions, or if they had students, if they are students that say, you know what, I need to find these people because I need an internship today, or I need some help. Thank you. And Cameron, actually, if you don't mind putting your contact information in the chat as well, in case there's a college student who wants to reach out to you with a question from the CollegeBound perspective. And I can put mine in as well. So you have all of our contact information. You have all the information yourself. You know where all the things are. And you'll be good.
Well, Melissa, thank you for doing this and creating this forum and this opportunity for us to share and pontificate.
Love it.
about what we think students ought to be doing. But it's exciting to be able to connect with students in this way, and I'm thankful for the opportunity.
Ditto.
Lori,
Thank you.
No, thank you guys for taking your time to do it. Have a great evening. Thank you all for joining us. Bye.